It's amazing how, as a country, we can go from apparent collective outrage when we learn that our government is spying on Americans to where both political parties come together to protect the government's right to do so. The not just extension, but apparently codifying the ability of our government to spy on Americans is something that Republicans and Democrats are looking to come together on now. As usual, within the Republican Party, you do have a contingency of Republicans that are outraged because they see leadership, getting closer and closer and closer. And I think I know there is, a lack of recognition as to how prevalent this issue is. I imagine that most Americans, if they were to be asked, how often do you think this occurs? So what does occur is the law allows our government to spy on people in other countries that are not Americans, right? Well, what happens is they end up doing so with individuals that they claim that the whole purpose is to monitor foreigners, but if they happen to be having a communication with you, oopsie daisies, they can't help but spy on you. They're supposed to close their eyes and their ears when it comes to anything that you say. But this is how they were able to spy on the Trump campaign, and they lied in order to do so, falsely claiming that Carter Page, that was their foot in the door, that Carter Page was on his own, disconnected from our government, colluding with Russians. Now, he was working on behalf of the CIA. The FBI falsified that evidence to make it look as if he was not. They took the evidence that showed he was doing it on behalf of our government. And our government, the thank you to him, was to falsify the documents to make it look like he wasn't working on behalf of the government. And so we need to spy on the Russians that he's talking to. And, well, I guess that means we're going to be spying on him. And, well, anything he's talking about, well, he was working on the Trump campaign. I imagine most Americans, if they were asked, how often do you think that this sort of, quote, accident occurred, or this sort of incidental spying on Americans by our government, the answer that the average American would give would be greatly under the actual number of times this is occurring. This is not an exception. This has become a common practice. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of Americans. We are in a constant surveillance state. In fact, I think there's a very good chance there's no country that spies on its own citizens to the degree that the United States of America does. We have gone from the one country that was able to say, hey, we're different than the rest of the world, we don't allow that to happen, to the leader of the world in spying on its own citizens. And what's becoming increasingly obvious to the average American is if you don't want that to be the case, there is no political party for you. There's no home for you. Now, that isn't to say, again, there are some elected Republicans that are with us on that, but they don't run the party. And it is day after day after day more and more clear that Americans that want responsible government, responsible spending, don't want the government to spy on them. There is no home for you in terms of a political party, at least between the two major political parties. A1 Custom Car Care, all of your car care needs. The pre-purchase inspection, I cannot stress the importance of this. The pre-purchase inspection, without question, you should never, ever, ever, ever not do. It should be the single most common action that you take on your behalf before you purchase a vehicle. It's what I've used. I've passed on vehicles I otherwise would have bought because of that pre-purchase inspection. And this is beyond the Carfax. This is what, well beyond any sort of accident reports or recall reports. This is what is that vehicle, the state of that vehicle as we speak, A1 Custom Car Care, they get in there, they get elbow deep, and they figure out what it is that you're looking at so that you know what you're purchasing. And those down the road catastrophic events, or maybe something that's even just a few $100 fix, you're going to know about it before you decide whether or not you make that purchase. That's the pre-purchase inspection with A1 Custom Car Care. Look at the weather here in mere moments. Right now, the latest news update. First alert forecast sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt. 80% chance of showers and thunderstorms this afternoon. A high today of only 61. Rainy with a low around 47 tonight. Mostly cloudy, 64 tomorrow. Friday sunny with a high near 69. Coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, and I'm telling you this now because as the show unfolds, things change. I've got a certain order, a very loose order, in which I plan on tackling the different subject matters of the day, but that evolves over time for a number of reasons. So oftentimes I don't say to you, oh, in the upcoming hour we're going to be talking about this, because it'll change. But sometimes I have an interview set in place, and 99% chance that is going to happen. So I feel pretty confident in letting you know about it. And if it's important as well, I want to let you know ahead of time so you know to go back and check it out. We coming up after the 7 o'clock news, in the 7 o'clock hour, we're going to talk with a journalist from The Lion who has been covering the story regarding the whistleblower allegations in the Springfield public school system that two teachers that are no longer with the district for reasons the district will not acknowledge, they allegedly, quote, kidnapped a gender-confused child because that gender-confused child's parents were not supportive of the child's desire to try and change his or her gender. And there has been radio silence on this. The local media apparently just refuses to cover this. I know that they are aware of it, yet particularly for a news leader that has a person whose sole job, I don't know if it's her sole job, but that Claudette Riley gal over there, that's what she does. She writes about the school district. Yet amazingly enough, there seems to be no interest in this whatsoever. Pretty salacious allegations. You've got this one journalist who has been continuing to cover the story, and we will be talking to him in the 7 o'clock hour. So again, if you're headed to work, you're not able to catch it live, then you can go back and listen to it on Spotify or KSGF.com, the app if you'd like, or anywhere else that you find those podcasts. Perhaps if you get off work today and you're headed home, or just whenever it's convenient for you. Springfield's Talk 104.1, a check of the latest traffic. I'm Nick Reed. Fox Business has a story. McDonald's $25 deal goes viral. Users blame California minimum wage increase, your new normal. Yeah. A viral social media video about $25 McDonald's deal, in quotes, recently sparked an online debate about California's minimum wage increase. A TikTok user who posts videos under the username at Shannon Montapaya shared the video on March 27th. She was in the drive-thru of a Southern California McDonald's location when she saw a sign for a 40-piece chicken McNugget meal deal, which also included 2 large fries. The price of the meal bundle was $25.39, including sales tax, which would come to roughly $27. In the video, the social media user lamented that the meal didn't even include a drink, saying, okay, so it's $25.39 for 40-piece nuggets and 2 large fries. You couldn't even throw in the Sprite? No, probably not. You couldn't even throw in, like, a medium Sprite here? Holy crap, she says. While the meal is designed to serve 4 people, it demonstrates how prices of the fast food chain have risen over the years. A recent study by Finance Buzz found that McDonald's prices have increased by 100% since 2014. 10 years ago, the average price of a 10-piece McNugget meal was $5.99. Now the meal usually goes for $10.99. The video ended up amassing 2 million views, bringing thousands of TikTok users to its comment section, many of whom were nostalgic about past McDonald's prices. One comment read, remember when 40-piece nuggets was $5 and a large drink was $1? The large drink for $1 wasn't that long ago. I know because I'm an iced tea drinker, and that would be one of my go-to places if I wanted an iced tea, because it was $1, any size. That's changed. One third commentator wrote, I spent $48 there yesterday, my jaw on the floor. Inevitably, some social media users pointed to the recent legislation in California increasing the minimum wage for fast food workers from $16 to $20. One person saying, $20 minimum wage, welcome to your new normal. Other users shared their local McDonald's prices. Very few came close to being as high as California. One Florida resident, 50 nuggets here for only $15. Another saying $16.19 in Dallas for a 20-piece and 2 large fries. Inevitably, your, quote, red states have much lower prices than your blue states. Which, incidentally, whenever you see these maps about, the average income or the average salary in this state and people on the left will mock red states, well, look how much less they make there. You don't need as much money to exist in those states. That's why. And in fact, oftentimes in terms of real dollars, the much lower salary in the actual numbers than, what you see in Mississippi, than what you get in California, actually goes further than the greater amount of dollars goes in California. Now, this, again, the reason that these videos go viral is because your average person is shocked by this. In fact, that's what they express. Went through, ordered this, cost this, my jaw on the floor. I was shocked to find out. This is a reflection of a dishonest media. When Donald Trump was president, and he was utilizing tariffs, specifically on China, in order to try to protect certain industries, steel industries amongst them, here in the United States. The media went to work making sure that you understood the implications of tariffs. I remember this because I remember at the time talking about it. And they did a great deal of educating of their listeners, of their viewers, of their readers, that when you increase the cost on a company that is based out of China, that cost gets passed on to you, the consumer. The reason that I focused on it at the time wasn't because it wasn't true. It was true. In fact, that's the whole point. The whole point of tariffs is to try and offset the advantage that companies have who are able to have lower prices than American-made companies because of the cheap labor in the other countries, and so you try to offset that by making the product more expensive. That is the whole point. Now, the media would not explain that part of it because the whole point, of course, was to make it look, make Trump look bad. Here Trump is trying to do something. This is part of his economic policy, and we're going to explain to you why it's bad because all this is going to do is raise prices on you. They didn't explain the context of it, but the reason that at the time, on numerous occasions, we talked about it here, was the notation between the difference in actually educating to some degree the viewer, the reader, the recipient of the news as to the real-life impact of making it cost more for a company to do business, and that is passing along to the consumer, was the compare and contrast to the fact that they never, ever, ever do that when it comes to taxes on corporations or forced increase of minimum wage. That education is, interestingly enough, missing when it comes to that form of increasing the cost of doing business. We see this over and over and over again, and it's always a local media thing. I mean, other than you might get Fox Business that does a story here, or even Fox News. Last year, the year before, it was Portland or Seattle. I mean, we've seen this over and over again where you'll have this initiative. Oftentimes, it will be citizen or council promoted and pushed and put into place, and it's just going to be wonderful. And in the lead up to it, all the local news outlets will interview the workers, and this will be such a relief to go from $15 to $20 an hour, and oh boy, what this will mean for me and my family, and it's going to be wonderful. Well, then, after it goes into effect, you get the follow-up interview. I wish I'd known then what I know now, they would say. I lost my job. Everyone's shocked. They're shocked because the media fails to report on the real-life implication of these things. And it's because this is a marketing tool that's used by the left. It's just like Joe Biden with the student loan thing. You're essentially buying votes. You're out there saying, I'm going to use my position and power to give you more money. Don't forget that when it comes time to vote. Whether that is transferring your financial commitment to a financial institution regarding student loans to somebody else, or forcing a private business to pay you more, not for doing anything more, but just because, hey, and they just pick an arbitrary number in California most recently, $20, that sounds good. Don't forget to vote for me. And with the media being dominated by Democrats, and this is their way of continuing to cling to power, clearly the media is not going to go out there and proactively say, by the way, just so you know, while yes, some people are going to have more in their paycheck, some of you, history shows, will lose their jobs, and the price of the product is going to have to go up. Maybe some more of one of the two than the other. But the fact of the matter is, well, in other words, the media would do what it is that they did regarding the issue of tariffs while Trump was president and actually educate the consumer of their product on the reality of what's going to happen. But they don't do that. And so what do you get? You get, incidentally, the people that the Democrats claim that they care about the most that are shocked to find out that they lose their jobs, and that as consumers, their dollar goes even less further than it did the day before. Look at that. Everybody wins, don't they? Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. couple days away from Friday Roadshow. Scramblers, sponsored by Extra Mile Home Inspection and Real Estate Repair. And we will have a first responders breakfast as well. So if you're a first responder, Pyramid Roofing Company and Barker's Frame and Collision, along with Scramblers, buying you breakfast between 6A and 9A. And then a reminder, next week, next Friday, we will not be out there. We are going to be doing the show live from the Dominican Republic, Punta Cana. It is our great escape. We'll actually do the show live Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then there will be James Clary Thursday.
Yes, and then Darren Chappell.
And Darren Chappell on Friday from in studio next Thursday, Friday. We would love for you to listen to us. Our live broadcast from Punta Cana, Dominican Republic is sponsored by Ming Auto Beauty Center. It is, I mentioned that the place I get my dry cleaning done. The guy that is generally there was all excited last time I was in there because he and his wife were going. And he said, he said, not on the trip with us, but they're going a couple weeks after us. But
Are they going to the same place?
Yes, the same place.
Okay.
And I know this because he was telling me that they were going, and that he said, honestly, I didn't know anything at all about Dominican Republic, where it was or anything until you guys started going there on some of the Great Escape trips. And he said that he watches Love is Blind. It's a reality show. And the finale, or some of the final shows, were filmed at, he's like, is that the resort that we're going to? And I looked it up, but it's the same one. In fact, if you go to the resort site that we're going to, which is, what is it, is it the TRS? Turquesa. They actually have on their website reference to the fact that season was, or part of the season was actually filmed there, which makes, I totally understand why, because that there were tons of people that watched that were trying to find that resort because it's so incredible. And you go to the site, and if you don't see something there referencing it, you don't know for sure. So it makes sense that they would put that up there. But that's where we will be broadcasting from next week. And if you did not get signed up to go with us this time around, definitely hope that you will join us for our next Great Escape, because they are just a fantastic time. Weather in moments. Right now, traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. I see that the establishment, with their continued stronghold on the Springfield public school districts, with their hand-picked individuals elected, or at least the majority of them on the school board, have once again reelected to lead the school board, Danielle Kincaid. So those who have enjoyed the constant decline of the school district to be very happy to know that we will, in Springfield, continue in that same direction. You do the same thing over and over again, you get the same results. I think most people, aside from political ideology, can recognize that to be the reality. First Alert Forecast, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. From Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt. There is an 80% chance of showers and thunderstorms this afternoon. A high near 61 for the day. Rain 47 tonight, mostly cloudy. 64 tomorrow. Friday sunny, high near 69. There is this, once again, internal battle going on within the Republican Party, this time over whether or not to allow our government to continue to spy on American citizens. Democrats, they're all in on this, obviously. Other than you get a few outliers, the Republican Party is led by individuals that also want to continue the police surveillance state that we have over time realized that we live in this country. The country that once upon a time was the bright light on the shining hill, that, this is what made us different. So many of us grew up. We would learn about other countries. We'd learn about the Soviet Union, learn about Stasi in East Germany, and about surveillance states and governments that spied on its citizens. And just we love the fact that, man, that thank goodness I was born in America. We now are the leading example on how to spy on your citizens. We are the leading example of how to carry out mass surveillance, and even when caught, exposed, bipartisanship support in allowing the government to continue to spy on us. You think about it, the people that we elect to Congress are supposed to be representing us. Yet, with a vote of this nature, you find out for whom they really represent, whom they cast their votes, who those votes are being cast for. The government apparatus, the spying on Americans, are they casting their vote on behalf of the intelligence community or on behalf of the citizens? And many of us do find ourselves being represented by individuals that do represent us. Unfortunately, both parties are run by people that are not there to support us, to work on our behalf, to represent us, but instead the police state. And if there's anyone who disagrees with the assertion that it is a police state, that our government is disagree with that fact that they're operating as a police state, I welcome that conversation. I don't know really how you get around it. I would be curious what your definition of a police state is. This is something that came out of committee. 9-2 vote. So, again, the vast majority of Republicans aligning themselves with Democrats out of the committee to send it, and I'm sure it'll pass the full House. We'll be told it's national security. The exact same reason every police state says that they have to spy on American citizens. While at the same time telling you, of course, well, as long as you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have to worry about it. I would note also this follows the pattern of denial, then once caught, not apologizing, no accountability, but you go from denial to justification. This is how the left always works, and unfortunately, again, the Republican Party, when it comes to the surveillance state, has this leftist mindset. And so when we were, for a period of time, of course, 9/11, don't worry, Patriot Act, oh, no, we'll never, we've got safeguards in place, see. Just like the prescription drug monitoring program in Missouri. Don't you worry. No, we set it up so that you can't be spied on. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry. And a lot of Americans, understandably so, in the culture of post 9/11, the fear and the belief that those people who are making those promises mean it. And that those people who are making those promises, that these surveillance state tactics will never be used on Americans, somehow, if they genuinely did mean, don't worry, we won't do it to you, that somehow they could hold future elected members accountable and hold them to those promises. You can't do that. And so those promises of don't worry, we'll never do it, then the revelation that they are doing it, and then the justification for it, and the, oh yeah, and guess what? We're going to do it some more. Oh, thank you very much. Kash Patel from the Trump administration. He was U.S. National Security Council official, senior advisor to the acting director of national intelligence, and chief of staff to the acting United States Secretary of Defense during the Trump presidency. And regarding what appears to be the Republicans controlling Congress, thank goodness Nancy Pelosi's not in charge any longer, and they're soon to, usher in the continuation and the codifying of surveillance state against citizens, and he's on Fox talking about what this means.
The biggest concern I have going forward is the politicization and weaponization and creation of a two-tier system of justice as a result. Back when Devin Nunes and I ran the Russiagate investigation and exposed the FISA corruption, we recommended a slew of fixes so it never happened again. Unfortunately, Congress chose to allow 702 FISA to basically be reauthorized. What does that mean? What is 702? It's fancy for foreign intelligence surveillance. It means me as a former national security prosecutor and intelligence operative would go overseas and manhunt terrorists. That's what it's for. But the FISA court in April of 2022 publicized an opinion that said the FBI used it illegally 275,000 times domestically against Americans, 16 different occasions against those affiliated with January 6th, 19,000 times domestically against donors to a congressional campaign, and wait for it, 24,000 separate times against Americans and groups in and around January 6th. That FISA process has been turned on its head, redirected inwards, and anyone who says, oh, that's just a Republican conspiracy speak, that's the FISA court that rescinded Rod Rosenstein's illegal surveillance of Donald Trump twice based on our investigation, and now they do it again, and they prove the FBI and DOJ have weaponized justice, and the Republican leadership in Congress allowed it to be reauthorized, essentially through the next election cycle.
So what will this mean in terms of the FBI, Christopher Wray, going into the next election?
Well, that's just it. Christopher Wray goes to Congress and says, I fixed it all. We have more training. Well, unfortunately, when you have the police officers, the cops in this country who break the law, we can't rely on themselves to police themselves. That is a communist form of a police representation. What we have to have had done is Congress to put forth a bill that put in cops from Congress in the FISA process at the FISA court, limiting their abuse of this power. I mean, just think of it. If Chris Wray and Merrick Garland and company utilized the FISA process to manhunt terrorists that were illegally coming into our country through our southern border, we wouldn't lose 24 of them based on their own testimony. And so what Chris Wray has now done is weaken American national security and redirected one of the most sensitive intelligence apparatuses against elections and those protesting their free speech right within America. And every time the FISA court asked the FBI, why did you allow your agents to do this? Their answer was, I could not recall. And they gave them a get out of jail free card, and the Republican majority, I know this is harsh, rewarded them for breaking the law and allowing this election interference to continue through 2024, mainly against Donald Trump.
All right, so this is what we're facing, and I suspect, again, that the Republican leadership will make sure that this goes through. The Senate will get it, and then it will be signed by Biden. You'd think as a political party, I think there's a combination of reasons that Republicans are helping codify the surveillance police state over the U.S. citizens in this country. I'm going to do a traffic update and list off a few of those points coming up. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Streaming live, KSGF.com, also on YouTube. You can watch the show unfold there or watch past episodes if you so choose. That's sponsored by Springfield Wraps. They can wrap about anything. They design the studio. They wrap the walls, wrap the counters. You can see that if you watch the live feed. Republicans seem poised to, once again, in a bipartisan effort. We love it when elected officials come together to just really cement in to place the ability of our government spying on American citizens. As it was noted in audio we played from Kash Patel of the Trump administration, that just within, I think it was a year's time, according to FISA itself, illegally, that they became aware of, 245,000 times they illegally use surveillance on American citizens. Not only is no one held accountable, but the people who are elected to represent us, enough of them are collectively saying, yeah, let's do more of that. That sounds good. Democrats, it makes sense. They are control freaks. They believe that the chosen few who are in government should dictate every aspect of your life. And it is much easier to do that if you know exactly what everyone's doing. Republicans are supposed to be the party of, the citizen, liberty, smaller government, all that stuff. So it's a little weird when you see the leadership helping push through the cementation of making our nation a police state. So why would Republicans do it? Those that do I think there are potentially a couple reasons. One, I think some just genuinely, they have a totalitarian mindset. They believe that that is the job of the government. It is to spy on American citizens. If those American citizens just, even if you haven't done anything, you're not accused of doing anything wrong, but I don't know, maybe you're talking to people they're suspicious of or, whatever. And, of course, have the mindset as long as you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to worry about. And it's for national security. I would note these are all the same reasons that dictatorships give if they ever feel the need to explain why they also spy on their citizens. It's for national security reasons, and as long as you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to worry about. I also suspect, frankly, that the people who are in these institutions that are actively involved in spying on American citizens, they don't not spy on these elected officials. Being an elected official doesn't get you some sort of buffer, some sort of a special wall in which they decide not to surveil you. In fact, I imagine that lawmakers, more than anyone, get spied on. Why? Well, that way, if they want you to vote a certain way, guess what? Here's a manila folder. Take a look-see at what we got. So I suspect that there's a very, very good chance that there are a number of lawmakers who maybe don't believe we should be a police state, maybe don't believe that we should spy on our citizens more than virtually any other country in the world, but they also don't want whatever dirt these agencies have on them leaked out to their family and their constituents. You think about it, even if, particularly for Republicans, even if they don't care about citizens, they don't care about you, the voters. They don't care about you being spied on. They don't care about the United States becoming a police state. Maybe they even want it. You think the fact that that it's used against the Republican Party to help rig elections might be some sort of personal preservation incentive for Republicans to be opposed to this country being a police state. It isn't as if it is a police state simply to spy on American citizens. It also operates in a way to keep their people in charge, and that's Democrats. Now, we may be surprised and understand this, and they're already doing it. The Republicans who are saying that this is a good thing are claiming, oh, no, that none of this is true. Oh, those problems, they were fixed. This is the other thing. Christopher Wray, whenever confronted with the 245,000 illegal actions spying on citizens, oh, well, we fixed that. We don't need to, don't take away our power to do that. Don't worry, we fixed it. So we're supposed to just, once again, trust government. Trust the politicians who tell us, don't worry, everything's fine now. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Well, if you are out there looking for a new gun shop, I want to tell you about my go-to place, and that is Quick Draw Gun in Monette. It's worth the drive down there, and they're easy to find. It's just a straight shot down 60. And Brad and his team, they are constantly adding and improving the shop to better serve you. And if you are out there looking for something specific, they are always happy to help. From home defense shotguns, hundreds of handguns to choose from, accessories, concealed carry purses for the ladies out there. They've got it all. And they also offer minor gunsmithing, scope mounting, custom laser engraving, and Cerakoting services. And they offer a discount to our military and our law enforcement. Just an all-around great gun shop to go to for all of your firearm needs out there. So if you are looking for a new gun shop with great customer service, you have now found it with Quick Draw Gun in Monette. Go ahead and give Brad and his team a call today. You can find all of that contact information, plus shop hours, store address. All of that is going to be housed under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Regarding what appears to be the Republican-led Congress's plan to reauthorize our government's ability to spy on American citizens. A text on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line saying it's not just FISA courts and the FBI. Some judge or official at the ATF approved the no-knock warrant on the Arkansas airport official who sold guns at gun shows. They shot him in the head. At least January 6 people are in jail for 10 to 20 years, but maybe that's worse. We talked about that case yesterday, and this was, this like a lot of these situations have, at the very least, complete and negligence written all over them, but perhaps even worse. This is an individual that they claimed while he was legally purchasing firearms and then legally selling firearms, he was doing it in a way to evade paying a $200 licensing fee in order to sell guns as a dealer. Something that, which never is really enforced in terms of punitive damages, but at the very most, that if they decided to really throw the book at the guy, was 6 months. But they decided 6 a.m. to do a no-knock raid, 10 different vehicles, and he hears somebody bursting in, like anyone who is trained to defend themselves, their family, grabs a firearm, he gets shot in the head. Let's not forget Ashley Babbitt as well. This is somebody who was completely unarmed, not in any way, shape, or form a physical danger to the Capitol Hill police officer who shot her, and he was praised as a hero for shooting her because she's a Trump supporter. The journalist that the Biden administration had arrested that works for the Blaze, he was talking about one of the things that he's learned in covering Capitol Hill is that the Capitol Hill police, they have all of the dirt. And it's one of the reasons that they are, unbeknownst to the average American, so ultimately powerful because they know everything about every member of Congress to a very dangerous degree. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Coming up Friday, broadcasting live from Scramblers, sponsored by Extra Mile Home Inspection and Real Estate Repair. It is also a first responders breakfast. Pyramid Roofing and Barker's Frame and Collision, along with Scramblers, buying you breakfast between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. as we broadcast live from Scramblers Friday. If you are a first responder, so come out and join us as we kick off the weekend, just a couple days away. I want to go ahead and we're going to jump to our local news and pound out the traffic and weather because we are going to talk with John Ransom. I mentioned this earlier, and we've covered his articles. He's the only journalist that seems to have any sort of interest in the whistleblower allegations of a kidnapping of a student by teachers. Two teachers that apparently are no longer with the district. This is something that the district, in the investigation by John Ransom at the Lion, to me, the inference I took away is that they were trying to make it sound like nothing along those lines happened. But last Friday, we talked with Representative Jamie Gregg, who confirmed to the Lion and then with us on Friday that, yes, in fact, this did happen. Amazingly enough, despite the fact that the news leader has a hired person to cover the school issues, still there appears to be no interest in covering this. And so we'll talk with John Ransom on his reporting on this coming up here in just a couple of moments. Right now, the latest news update. First Alert Forecast sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. From Color Tin Fox 49, meteorologist Tom Schmidt. 80% chance of showers and storms this afternoon, a high near 61. Rain tonight, low of 47. Mostly cloudy tomorrow, 64, and then sunshine on Friday with a high of 69. Streaming live, KSGF.com, also on YouTube. You can watch the video and audio stream live there thanks to Springfield Raps, designer of the KSGF studio. A couple of weeks ago, we brought you a story from The Lion from John Ransom, who's doing an investigative piece regarding allegations from a whistleblower within the Springfield School District regarding a student and teacher's, quote, in the words of the whistleblower, kidnapping a student, and this has to do with gender identification and so forth, and we'll get those details. But one of the things that as this has progressed and John Ransom has continued to investigate this, we had last Friday, based off of one of those stories, Missouri State Rep Greg on air with us out at Scramblers, confirming that, he had confirmed that this is true, yet radio silence. The district continues to try, and through their statements, and we reached out to them as well and got sort of a standard statement, but it's clear that they're trying to keep this under wraps. And the news leader, which of course is supposed to inform the citizens as to what is going on, not act as a buffer or a cover-up agent for the district, is apparently doing just that as they continue to refuse, for whatever reason, to write any sort of story and inform the public about this. So I think we're the one outlet that continues to try to bring you this information, and if it were not for John Ransom at The Lion, we would not know of this at all. Now, of course, among other places, his work has appeared in townhall.com. Townhall, of course, is the news that we provide you at the top and bottom of every hour, and I want to thank you for being with us. I appreciate it. How, if you would, just walk us through the first, I guess, contact you received, or how you learned of this and the development of the story.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me on. From time to time, we are contacted by people inside government with tips, with allegations, with things that's wrongdoing that they see that they feel like should be brought to public attention. And because of their position, because of fears of retaliation, because of worries that there's a cover-up or something like that, they want to remain anonymous, and so we investigate those on a regular basis. We get maybe several of those tips every week, and a lot of them turn out to be non-stories, or there's just nothing that we can report. But we did feel in looking at this story, first of all, we looked at the credibility of the person who was talking to us, and we found that person to be very, very credible, not to have any sort of axe to grind. But then we also look at the types of responses that we get from governmental authorities when we reach out to them, and we felt, quite honestly, and we really think that this is the story. The story really is that the district doesn't want a straight answer. They don't want to answer the questions. They feel like somehow they're privileged, that they don't have to answer public questions about these types of things. And so instead of answering honestly, they play word games.
Well, in your first article, I was actually surprised to the degree that it almost appeared to me as if the district wanted to be obvious they were trying to keep things hidden, because generally speaking, Sarah, the producer of the morning show, she reached out asking for information and got what I would consider to be the more standard personnel issues. We can't talk about it, but the way that the wording was, to me, it just screamed, okay, they're being so deliberately cagey in the response to your query, and I don't have that. I've got the second article regarding Representative Gregg in front of me, but it just seemed, it wasn't vague. It was well, we don't have anything that the verbiage was something along the lines of that fit that specific scenario or something, and it sounded just to me as if they were really parsing the words there in their denial.
And an attorney would call, if you're an attorney and you're questioning somebody on the witness stand, that would be what an attorney would call a non-responsive answer. And it really, what it means is you're changing the subject. Yeah. You're taking the subject off. Look, if you're innocent of something, you say, I'm innocent. You say, this never happened. You're black and white about it. But if you're guilty, you try to change the subject and you start to play word games and you do a non-denial denial. You make it the issue about something else. I mean, they seemed more that, they demanded that we provide them with all of the details rather than simply saying that never happened, or you know what, that did happen and we fired the teachers because of it.
Did you get the sense when they turned it around and they started asking you questions that perhaps their motivation was to try and figure out whom the whistleblower is?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was their number one concern, in my opinion, was they wanted to know where the leak was coming from. And this is the thing. I refuse to provide them with the names of the teachers. And I refuse to provide them with the details because, first of all, as I said to them, if I provide you the names of the teachers, all of this is subject to sunshine requests.
Mm-hmm.
It goes into an email to you, into your email system. I don't want to make this about the teachers. Okay, this is about what is the school district doing about this problem. Well, it's about holding government officials accountable for doing their jobs. The teachers have already been dismissed.
Well, let me ask this then, because I mean, it seems to me, if the teachers have been dismissed, that the district would know whom it is that I mean,
you would think,
yeah.
Unless this is a really common occurrence, and they need to unless they're like 27 teachers who have been fired, and they want to know the two that we're talking about. Because 27 teachers have done a similar thing, you would think that they would know. And of course they do know, in my opinion. They know exactly what it is that we're talking about, but they don't, part of it is that they don't want to bring up the fact that their own policies led to this, that they've encouraged teachers to behave this way, that they've encouraged teachers to ignore parental rights, to ignore the best interests of the students over a political agenda. And that's really what it comes down to. They don't want to talk about it because it exposes the mismanagement that they do on a daily basis. Rather than educating the children, they're indoctrinating the children. And it's rubbing off on the teachers, and it's affecting the kids and the parental rights.
We're talking with John Ransom, who broke the story regarding the whistleblower's allegations in the Springfield Public Schools that you had teachers, in the words of the whistleblower, kidnapped a child regarding gender confusion and so forth. And for those who don't know the story, and as I mentioned, we've talked about it on a number of occasions here, walk us through what the allegations from the whistleblower are.
The whistleblower alleged that a gender confused student approached a teacher about their gender confusion, and that teacher didn't know exactly what to do, so consulted with another teacher, and together they decided to remove that teenage student from the parental home and take them to one of the teacher's homes.
Was that, and if you even know the answer to this, was that supposed to be some long-term plan? Was it just for a day? What was the reason behind, taking the child to the home of the teacher by the teacher?
Well, wasn't supportive wouldn't be supportive of a gender change, and so the teachers ostensibly felt like they were acting in the best interest. They were somehow protecting the student. But again, that goes back to, your ideology, and I think only a very select ideology would look at a situation like that and think that we have to negate parental rights here and just take the student. I mean, anytime, look, people may say, hey, well, kidnapping, that's such a harsh word. Well, if a father takes a child in a custody dispute without the mother's permission, we call it kidnapping.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, so anytime an adult takes a child without parental authorization, it's called kidnapping. That's what it is.
Were they? And again, I don't know. And it's kidnapping either which way. But I'm just always interested in people's motivation and what the next step was. And did the whistleblower provide any information, or have you uncovered any information as to what, I guess I'd say, the plan was of the team? Was it just to keep the child or help the child transition? Or in their minds, what was their plan that they felt was something that was in the best interest of this gender confused child?
Well, what were indicated to us, and we didn't hit this very hard in the story, but we did mention it, was that, it was like the first step in their transition plan. That if they were free of their parents, they'd be able to start at least their social transition. Again, we didn't want to talk much about those types of things and concentrate a lot on the teachers, because really what we look at is we look at the bigger governmental issue. Here's a school district. Is the school district acting in the best interest of the voters, the taxpayers, the students, the parents, or are they not? And clearly that's for us, that's what the big story is. There are other remedies that will be pursued, I'm sure, with the teachers, and on an individual basis, and I'm sure Representative Craig, I think, has been on that.
Yeah, and when we spoke with him Friday, Greg said that this was something he was continuing to investigate and try to learn. And I know one of the roadblocks, I shouldn't say roadblock, but one of the unexpected difficulties, there was this assumption that law enforcement being involved, that there would be a police report. But as I understood it, he explained that the school resource officer is autonomous enough from the police department that there isn't really the same sort of police reporting that is done that can be requested, that somehow it's just not as easy. He's finding some difficulties there and roadblocks being thrown up.
Well, again, what we're looking at is we're looking at a situation where school districts have been a monopoly for a long, long time. And when you have a monopoly like that, you also have corruption and you also have abuse. And what school districts around the country have done is they've very carefully crafted policies that protect them from disclosure, from being able to disclose information that will expose wrongdoing, that will expose malfeasance, that will expose school districts acting contrary to the best interests of the students, the parents, the voters, the taxpayers. And, part of what we're seeing all across America is voters, parents, students standing up against that and saying, you know what, that's not acceptable anymore. We have to do a better job in this.
Well, unfortunately, we just have school board elections, and the voters in Springfield decided to keep us on the same track. So we don't necessarily have good news there. A couple more questions. We talked with John Ransom, who broke the story about this student and the allegations from a whistleblower of the kidnapping because of gender dysphoria by teachers. Now, someone had asked what age this was, and I believe the story indicated that this was a student at Central High. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Do we know anything, not that it necessarily matters, but just out of curiosity, anything more specific as to which grade?
No.
Okay.
I mean, yes, I do, but that's not. I'm not going to get into personally identifying any student involved or anything like that. The salient fact is that this was a juvenile, somebody who was underage, and the teachers were certainly adults, and those are the two important things. And again, we wanted to make sure the spotlight was not on the student, was not on the teacher, because that's not really what we do. We talk about governmental corruption. We talk about school districts covering things up, and that's what we're trying to report on.
And so then final question, in the most recent story, you noted that the Lion had contacted the superintendent as well as the Attorney General's office, but at the time of the publication had not received a response. Has that changed?
No, that has not changed. Okay. We have not received a response. I gave Representative Craig some grace to do. He was going to do his investigation.
Right.
I didn't want to cross lines on that. We're waiting to see what a sunshine request will produce, what kind of information that will produce. But we're not going to. We oftentimes these stories take several weeks to a month to develop. We recently did an investigation down in Denton, Texas, about illegal electioneering by school board members. down there, our school district members down there, that resulted in indictments, and it took about a month or so for those indictments to come through. So,
Do you have any thoughts on our local media not covering this?
do I have any what?
Thoughts on that? I mean, as a journalist, it's just amazing to me something like this with allegations that are as profound as this, that there is not a peep. There's no coverage that I've been able to find of in our local media on this.
Local media generally is an extension of
Yeah.
that small club who runs school districts.
Yep,
They're
true.
part of the Chamber of Commerce, and
Yeah,
they're a
yeah.
booster committee,
Well, you
and they
nailed it.
operate as a Ways and Means Committee
Yeah.
for school districts.
Well,
That's
you
what they do.
nailed it.
And I will say yes, I'm aware of the results from the election the last time.
Yeah.
I think that it will take several bites at the apple in order to change things around there. But eventually people will get tired. Eventually people, and maybe the story is the one that people will just get so outraged they'll show up at school board meetings and demand things change.
Well,
So,
and it does take perseverance, and I don't want to diminish the extremely hard work and perseverance and dedication of the three in particular board members that have been fighting to change the direction of things, because without them there would be no hope, and so I do not want to send the message. I see how it could come across that way, that
well,
there is no
I
hope,
mean,
because there certainly is, and they're fighting hard on there.
well, the way you select school district members right there is part of the problem.
Yes.
It's kind of ranked choice, because the top three vote getters, you guys aren't actually electing school board members.
Yeah.
You're electing prom queens.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's really part of the problem. There should be competitive races. People should race head to head in different districts
Agreed.
with different ideas, contrasting ideas. That's what makes America great, the competition out there, and that's the reason why they have school district elections the way they have them in Springfield, is because they don't want that competition.
Yeah,
They want it to
absolutely.
they want everybody to be prom queen, not to be actually elected members of a school board that are responsible to the voters.
John Ransom, listen, I really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you
Hey,
so
anytime,
much
yeah.
for
Anytime you
covering
guys
this.
have questions.
Yeah, and then I know you've got Sarah set up this talk with you, and so you all have communication with one another. Please, if there are any updates or anything at all we can do in order to help continue to inform the Springfield area public on this, please let us know.
Sure. Thanks. Appreciate your time today.
All right, have a fantastic one. John Ransom there of The Line, and of course you can find his coverage as well as coverage from other journalists there. And the site is Read Lion, READ Lion.com. Of course, we'll make sure that we get that up at KSGF.com. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Going to get a traffic update. Do want to remind you about the First Responders Breakfast coming up Friday. If you are a first responder, free breakfast for you, thanks to Barker's Frame and Collision, Pyramid Roofing Company, and Scramblers. That's this Friday, 6A to 9A. First Responders. I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com, all of your home loan needs and advice. I could challenge you, just out of curiosity, to go to one of the, big, mega, massive banks or some online outfit that does home loans and say, hey, would you just spend some time with me, sort of counseling me and educating me on this stuff? Or could you run, my options here and then, just give me advice. Maybe we can spend some time or go to lunch and you can tell me how it is that I can increase my odds of getting a better interest rate, and see what sort of response you get. I suspect that it's not going to be one that's very accommodating. I want a great homeloan.com. This is what they do. They enjoy doing it. They're kind of nerds when it comes to this stuff. The characters, their team, they love helping people when it comes to this stuff. So don't feel as if, well, if I go at iwantagreathomeloan.com and put some info in, then they're going to hassle me. They're never going to leave me alone. And they're going to charge me. No, that's not how any of that works. That information, that advice is of no cost to you. So utilize it. Take advantage of it. And for all your home loan needs, iwantagreathomeloan.com. First alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. An 80% chance of showers and storms this afternoon. A high today of 61, rain 47 tonight. Mostly cloudy tomorrow, high near 64. Sunshine Friday, 69 for the high. Coming up this weekend is the call to action. Christian County Republican Central Committee have their Ozarks Conservative Convention, and speakers will include Chris Ann Hall, William Federer, Robert Brown, and you can win a pair of tickets for the event by texting the word WIN, that's WIN, to the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line, which is 417-447-KSGF. Text the word WIN, just the word, and that will get you entered for a chance to win a pair of tickets for that event. Man, John Ransom of The Lion, did he nail Springfield or what?
Boy, he sure did.
And I don't mean nail it like really told him, but that guy had the relationship between the news leader and the school district.
Yep.
I mean, it's as if
It was like he was a resident.
yeah. I mean, he summed it up so perfectly, the problem. And he's the journalist who broke this story that has been out there for a couple of weeks, maybe going on 3 weeks now, about the allegations from a whistleblower of the kidnapping of a student at Central High by teachers that were trying. The student claimed that the parents weren't supportive of the desire to be the opposite gender, and so that you had teachers involved in kidnapping the student, and so forth. And I had asked, wasn't sure if he'd answer as a journalist, talking about other journalists, but his thoughts on the fact that, particularly with the news leader, and given that they have a person that covers education, their non-coverage of this, and he said, the problem that you have is you get, and it's not uncommon for scenarios like this where the people who are the so-called journalists, they're in that little culture, they're buddies, they're friends with or associates with the establishment, and you get the Chamber of Commerce in there. And I mean, he was listing off all the usual suspects that are the problems that continue to come together, work together in order to get their people in positions of power so that we can continue on the path of decline. And I thought, man, it's as if this guy's lived here for years and has been covering the local situations here in Springfield. Now, speaking of that, in the context of journalism, the Daily Caller has this piece noting that USA Today appears to have altered a Monday headline on former President Donald Trump's abortion stance after the Biden campaign blasted the outlet's coverage. Incidentally, that's Gannett. It's the same people that own the news leader. The U.S. news leader is like a little child of USA Today. Now, Trump, of course, on Monday said that states should craft their own abortion laws, which many, including USA Today, interpreted to mean that he was against any national regulation. Does that make sense? You come out, all right, what's he going to say on abortion? He's like, hey, I think it's up to the states. Well, then that means it's not up to a national level. I mean, it's one or the other. You either say it's up to, the federal government to decide this, or it's up to the states. He said it's up to the states. So the headline from USA Today initially after the announcement was, quote, "The will of the people. Trump opposes national abortion ban, says states should decide." Okay. Well, apparently, after complaints from the Biden campaign, the headline changed to "Donald Trump says states should decide abortion policy, avoids talk of a national ban." Now, what is the implication of that? The Biden campaign's plan here is to convince people that Donald Trump is going to outlaw abortion. That if Donald Trump is elected, he will use his power as president of the United States to outlaw abortion. And they're saying all sorts of crazy lunatic stuff too, like he's going to ban contraception. You got that idiot astronaut senator out in Arizona. He's claiming that Trump's going to outlaw contraception. You've got James Carville claiming that if Trump gets elected president, the Supreme Court is going to decide that it's illegal to mail condoms through the mail, and that these people are lunatics. But this is what they're banking on. They're banking on voters being scared of Trump getting elected, believing that he, on a national level, will do something. So when USA Today comes out with a headline that accurately reflects the fact that Trump is saying, nope, not me, I'm not going to be dealing with this anymore. Did my part, Supreme Court judges, justices, but on a federal level, nothing. That negates the disinformation that the Democrats are spreading about the implications of Trump being elected president. So when USA Today changes their headline to say that he doesn't talk about a national ban, it makes it sound like Trump's position in no way, shape, or form has any indication as to what he will do on a national level. So it leaves it as an open question. In other words, what the Democrats are saying is not disinformation necessarily. So that's the implication of the USA Today changing their headlines. And this is part of what we know. And that is, on the whole, national media in particular is simply the marketing wing of the Democrat Party and the Biden reelection campaign. You know, can you imagine if the Trump campaign complained about a headline regarding Joe Biden? You think that USA Today would change the headline in order to validate the narrative of the Trump campaign? Because that's what they've done here. This is changing the headline to validate the narrative of the Biden campaign instead of conflicting with it. Instead, what USA Today probably would have done, if the roles were reversed, is written up an editorial about Donald Trump, the dictator, trying to strong-arm the press into doing his bidding and how dangerous and chilling that is to free speech. But we all know that they are working on behalf of the efforts of the Democrats to prevent the American people from electing Donald Trump to be president of the United States. After the traffic, what folds into this is an article, an editorial that is going viral, in which a 25-year-old veteran at NPR has come forward, oh heck, I'll say as a whistleblower, and has fully acknowledged that NPR, as a news outlet, which, by the way, is taxpayer-funded to a degree, not fully, but they get a lot of funding from taxpayers, that not only were they biased, but essentially working to rig the elections and to undermine the Trump administration. It'll come as no surprise that NPR is saying, no, that's not true. Well, of course they are. Some of his detailed accusations, and then I also have, he did an interview with a left-leaning Barry Weiss. The name, I think I forget her background in journalism. She's got a podcast, and he explained some of his position. So we'll play that audio as well coming up. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. All right. NPR exposed. Insider tells all about news outlets' incredible bias, various story cover-ups. And I've got, he's, as you can imagine, he's done a number of interviews after this. And as expected, NPR is claiming none of this is true. They're not biased at all. The thing about people who are overtly activist and biased is they have themselves convinced that they're not because they're telling the truth. There's only one truth, and it's theirs. They're amazing people, you see. Now, so here's it. You go, yeah, there is only one truth. That is true, but here's the thing about people on the left. They think that they, 100% of the time, are the only ones who actually know what that truth is, and everyone else is always wrong. That's why there's no room to hear the other side, because the other side's just wrong. Now, the old approach was different people have different opinions as to what the truth is, and so we're going to report on those people's different opinions. And some people may not even be honest about things, but this is what they say. They are in a position of authority, or they are relevant to this particular story. So we're going to put it out there, and then it is up to our reader to decide, our listener, our viewer to decide, all right, here's all the people providing their information. You decide. What happens now is you have this culture of journalism in which they don't believe in doing that because, well, those people are wrong. Why would we print what's wrong? Well, who decides that? Well, I do. You think about the narcissism involved, the level of narcissism to believe that you are always right. Now, they may claim, well, I'm not saying that. Well, you're operating it as if that's the case. If your position is, well, we're not biased, we're just not allowing people who are spreading disinformation, we're the ones who decide that, that is operating as if you are always correct. And you somehow are the person who knows ultimately what all truth is. 25-year-old veteran NPR coming forward to offer details of just how far the once respected organization has fallen. His name, Yuri Berliner, and among other interviews he's done, he was on with Barry Weiss on a podcast called Honestly, and here's an excerpt of him talking about NPR.
Or had a liberal bent. It was like saying these days, like Fox has a conservative bent. That was obvious to anyone. But you argue that it's really gone from having a liberal bent or a liberal shading to really a bias. Here's one thing you write in your essay. You write, for the majority of your time at NPR, despite the liberal bend, an open-minded, curious culture prevailed. We were nerdy, but not knee-jerk, activist, or scolding. Uri, when did that start to change? When did the thing that everyone sort of recognized as sort of a liberal bias start to shift into something harder than that, into what you call a knee-jerk, activist, and even scolding quality?
Well, I think it was cumulative. I don't think it was one event. I mean, I think part of it was Trump's election. You know, I think like every newsroom, every legacy media newsroom, we were shocked, disturbed, distraught, really troubled. We assumed Hillary Clinton was going to win, and she didn't. And it was really an unsettling experience. But I also think, to me, it revealed that we didn't really understand a lot of what was going on in America, that we were out of touch. But I think also we kind of locked down after a while. I think after a while we started covering Trump in a way that like a lot of legacy news organizations, that we were trying to damage his presidency, to even find anything we could to harm him. And I think what we latched on to was Russia collusion, like a lot of news organizations, which was, as I write, sort of catnip, although it was just rumors and a lot of it based on pretty shoddy documents or evidence. It wasn't really solid. But I think it was compelling. And for us, you know, I think a lot of newspapers, use documents or anonymous sources. We really latched on to Adam Schiff. He was like our muse to the Trump collusion story. We had him on constantly, a lot. I think I counted 25 times. And in most of those conversations, he sort of alluded to evidence he may have had or sort of teased out, Russia, he was colluding or the campaign was colluding with Russia. And then the Mueller report came out and no collusion. And, I think we sort of went to the story kind of disappeared. But to me, that was like a time for what went wrong? Why did we miss this? Despite our feelings about Trump, this is a story we should have sort of treated differently.
Now, I'd say he downplayed Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff didn't allude to. Adam Schiff flat out said, interview after interview after interview, you just wait. We've got smoking gun evidence. It's just a matter of time. We just can't show you yet. So he was deliberately misleading the media and the American people. And it should also be, this is clearly is beyond an NPR issue. This is a national media issue. And what he referenced here is the fact that once we realized we were wrong on Russian collusion, it just sort of disappeared. I don't think it should go without recognition that I don't know that there has been in modern history any coverage of a story in which journalists have awarded themselves awards and accolades as much as the Russian collusion story. So it wasn't simply, we reported on something that turned out not to be true. I'm talking about just overall in this country with national media, but that they awarded each other things, gave each other awards. And it was all, and I think what is actually the most significant portion of what he noted here, he said that what we were actually trying to do, he looks at it in retrospect, we were writing stories to harm Trump. That's what he explained there. We were writing stories to try and harm Trump. I would argue that, listen, if you're some corporate owned media outfit and you want to be a mouthpiece for one political party, you have the right to do that. I don't believe we should have any public funding for media anyhow. But when you have, and I'll call him a whistleblower, although this isn't necessarily a revelation, acknowledging that they actively used their positions as a partially taxpayer-funded media entity that is supposed to be providing information, instead utilizing their position to try and harm Donald Trump, somebody that at one time was a candidate. This would be election interference. Going back to the problems with the Republican Party and the recognition that they are poised under the current leadership to codify a police state in place with the FISA courts. You look at, here is a political party that has the purse strings, NPR, taxpayer funded. You go to work, some of your taxes that come out go to fund this stuff. And here you have an admission, not that we didn't know it anyhow, but that that the job that was carried out it became at some point no longer about providing you news, but to prevent Donald Trump from succeeding. And under the Republicans, still you and I have to fund this outfit. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. The 25-year-old veteran and whistleblower at NPR coming forward offered details about how they, among other things, were operating, crafting stories for the purposes of hurting Donald Trump as opposed to informing the public as to what was actually going on. He said that he was just trying to piece together how did NPR become a political activist outfit instead of a journalist outfit. And he wrote in a full piece on this, which we'll get up at ksgf.com. In recent years, I've struggled to answer that question. Concerned by the lack of viewpoint diversity, I looked at voter registration of our newsroom. In Washington, D.C., where NPR is headquartered, and many of us live, I found 87 registered Democrats working in editorial positions and 0 Republicans. None. For a political party that loves to lead, DEI with the D standing for diversity, this once again shows that they don't really care about diversity where it actually matters. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, as if she is your personal assistant. You're going to live like one of them rich folks. You watch these reality TV shows, and they've got these personal assistants that they do everything. That's what you hear that, and you read that in the reviews. People who've used Emily Johnson is that she's not one of those realtors that just calls you and says, oh, here's a house, I'll let you in, and let me know if you like it. So much beyond that. I oftentimes read you the reviews. I would encourage you to go check them out. You can go to her Facebook page, and then in particular, when you go to Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, and then underneath, sort of in the I think it's in the About section, there's a link, and it's like a Zillow link that has a profile of her, and there are a lot of reviews in there as well. Sometimes on Facebook, you get some spam reviews. It's like, oh, Bitcoin and those sorts of things. But because it's where I go and check out a lot of the reviews just to see the latest of what people are saying. From her little, again, I think it's in the profile area of her Facebook page that you can get to that area of many of her reviews, and you hear, particularly those who have used other people in the past, just how above and beyond and how incredible she does helping people sell their homes, buy their homes, and sometimes at the same time, which can be very stressful. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Coming up Friday, we do have a First Responders Breakfast at Scramblers. That First Responders Breakfast is sponsored by Barker's Frame and Collision and Pyramid Roofing Company. You just come by Scramblers between 6 a and 9 a on Friday, and you are going to get free breakfast if you are a first responder. Once again, the Democrat Party has highlighted its firm and impressive grasp on science with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas. Have you run across this one yet?
Mm-mm.
I am not kidding you when I say this. When I first saw it, I thought it's an AI thing. I thought this is not real because it is almost impossible, not fully, but almost impossible for me to believe that just any adult would be as stupid as some of these people are, let alone a member of Congress. And I mean that. I am by far nowhere close to being nearly as informed on a number of issues as so many other people are. You know, I know my lanes. I know what's not my lane. I know where I'm kind of in a partial lane and so forth. But even the things that I don't know a lot about, you just have a basic comprehension of. When I hear some of these elected Democrats talk about things, particularly when it comes to science, Sheila Jackson Lee is what committee? She's on some She previously served on the House's Science Committee and Space and Aeronautics Committee, okay? So in the minds of the Democrat Party, in terms of leadership and comprehension of science and space, Sheila Jackson Lee is one of the brightest members of Congress in the Democrat Party. This is what she had to say. So she claims that at a local George Washington Carver school, that she created this event for watching the solar eclipse. Apparently, according to her, while the rest of the United States, particularly those that were within the path or near the path of the eclipse, everyone was planning on going out and looking at the sun. The students at George Washington Carver completely unaware of this, and they had no plans whatsoever. So she created this event. And in what can only be described as a Kamala Harris-esque attempt to explain the moon and the solar eclipse to these students, this is what Sheila Jackson Lee had to say.
Or had a liberal bent. It was like saying
that
these days,
not like the correct audio. This is.
Provide unique light and energy so that you have the energy of the moon at night. And sometimes you've heard the word full moon. Sometimes you need to take the opportunity just to come out and see a full moon is that complete rounded circle, which is made up mostly of gases. And that's why the push The question is why or how could we as humans live on the moon to do that? The sun is a mighty powerful heat that is almost impossible to go near the sun. The moon is more manageable, and you will see in a moment, or not a moment, you'll see in a couple of years that NASA is going back to the moon.
So here is the former ranking member of the House Science Committee and Space and Aeronautics Committee explaining that, well, full moon, it's that round thing in the sky, that the moon is made up mostly of gas. Like when you see that moon up there, most of what you're seeing, which would be 50.1% at least, is actually just gas. It's not rock. It's gas. And that at this point, apparently, one of the scientific endeavors that we are embarking on is to determine whether or not those gases are of a nature that will allow us just to live on the moon. You know, I guess whether it's the right combination of oxygen and so forth. And then she goes on to explain that the sun is really hot and it's almost impossible to get, like come up upon and get close to. How close you are able to. She said almost. So that suggests to me she believes you can, I guess, touch it. I don't know. That level of her knowledge is probably beyond the audience's comprehension, which is why she did not delve into that deeply. I thought that this was somebody faked this, that this was an AI fake in order to try and demonstrate the level of stupidity that elected Democrats have when it comes to talking to this stuff.
This is the best that they've got.
Apparently, that is apparently, or at least one of, I guess, I don't know how many members are on that committee. There's probably 8 or 12. And so, you're talking anywhere from 4 to 5, 6 Democrats on there. My assumption is that when you pick people, you are picking people that have either a level of expertise in that area or you feel that their comprehension level is as such that they are going to be able to learn at an accelerated rate beyond other members. And for Democrats to put her up and say, oh, in terms of comprehension of science, this is one of our absolute top people.
Did you see her response back? So RNC Research, they are on X, and they oftentimes post like little blurb.
Sure, yeah.
I know you've ran across them
yeah.
before. So they, of course, took this audio, and they put the headline, Democrat Rep. Sheila Jackson Lee, it's almost impossible to go near the sun, but the moon is more manageable because it's made up mostly of gases, and then they put in little parentheses, it isn't. Well, then she responded back, obviously I misspoke and meant to say the sun.
Oh,
but
okay.
As usual, Republicans are focused on stupid things instead of stuff that really matters.
She was talking about it in the context of the ability of humans to live there. Because that's what she was saying, okay? She was saying that because it's made up mostly of gas, we are currently trying to determine whether or not that will allow us to live there. So if she's claiming that she was obviously talking about the sun, that means that she was talking about us living on the sun? Because that was the whole purpose of her talking about the gas.
Didn't even get to the best part of her response. You don't really like this part. Foolish thinkers lust for stupidity.
Okay. Back in, this is also fantastic, in 1997, there was a Texas Monthly article, and it had to do with the rover and Mars. And she, during a conversation with scientists, her colleagues, asked whether the rover on Mars managed to photograph the American flag planted there by Neil Armstrong. On Mars. How is it that, I mean, I know how it is, but you think about the fact that pop culture, media, has managed to create this narrative that somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene is an idiot when people like this, as elected Democrats continue to be provided a platform and put on committees as if they are experts in their field. Let's not forget I always forget, I want to say it was Johnson, Congressman Johnson, who still serves, who asked a member of the military whether we had concerns about a particular island tipping over because we had a military base on one side of it. This was during congressional hearings, asked whether or not our military had concerns about the island tipping over. It was a serious question. I mean, these are members of Congress, of the Democrat Party. Anyhow, it does seem, I know people say, oh, well. Why you always have to point out the stupid things Democrats say. If you can find this level of stupidity within elected Republicans, then I'll be more than happy to highlight it. I'm not saying that Republicans are all a bunch of brilliant individuals. I'm sure you have some idiots. But this is beyond stupid. I don't know what's less than stupid. What is it on the ignoramus? Isn't that the lowest ranking on the Cracker Barrel table puzzles? The little triangle. I think ignoramus is the one where if you just fail so poorly, you might as well give up. I feel like whatever's below ignoramus, that's what some of these Democrats are. We talked about these people on The View. That we're talking about the eclipse and cicadas and how, all this clearly signs of global warming, climate change. Once again, an instance in which I assume the people at ABC, given that this is billed as a news program, pick women obviously they're leftists, pick leftist women that they feel to some degree are at least in the top 10% of intelligent Democrat women. That's what they come up with? And I mean this genuinely, if it was the other way around and you had programs that were dominated by females that were deliberately picked because of their political persuasion and they were conservative, and if they were as dumb as we consistently see with females on the left, Republicans would be the first ones saying, get those people the hell off the air. You are making us look like idiots. It strikes me as, I don't know, counterproductive that Democrats don't do that same thing. If I were a Democrat, I would be like, can we please shut these people up? Can we please replace The View with some female liberals that they don't have to be the brightest bulb in the box, but at least not broken in shards? And I suppose the obvious answer is maybe they don't exist. Maybe there are no, on a national level, be it in media or Congress, any, intelligent, maybe all the intelligent women just are. They're conservative. And perhaps, I suppose many of you just assume that by definition that, yes, they would be conservative. If they're intelligent, they're clearly not going to be liberal. And while those on the left might disagree with that sort of stereotype, you all are the ones that are putting that stereotype out there. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. First Alert Forecast sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals from Color 10 Fox 49, meteorologist Tom Schmidt. 80% chance of showers and thunderstorms after 1 o'clock this afternoon. A high near 61. Rain, low of 47 tonight. Tomorrow, cloudy. 64 Friday, sunny, high near 69. It was Guam that Democrat Congressman Hank Johnson was concerned might tip over because we had a military base on one side of it. This is the party that mocks conservatives as being anti-science. Demonstrators, praised by Hezbollah's leader, shut down the Senate cafeteria. There was a storming of the Capitol by anti-Semitic Democrat activists. Many of them were arrested for crowding, obstructing, or incommoding. I'm not familiar with that word. Inside a congressional building. I'm sure that they, too, will face 10 to 20 years in prison, like so many of the January 6th individuals, many of which walked in after law enforcement opened the door and waved them in. Let's not hold our breath. What we'll see, we'll hear nothing else of this. Just like we heard nothing else of the anti-Semitic Democrat activists that almost tore down the White House fence, protesting the existence of Israel, or the flooding of anti-Semitic Democrat activists into the Capitol not long after October 7th, demanding that the United States support Hezbollah in their call for ceasefire, which, of course, the Biden administration would do. See the difference here between activists? See, if you're a left-wing activist and you storm the Capitol with demands, they get met. You know, this is learned behavior, incidentally, and this was learned behavior well before even the George Floyd riots. But this was learned behavior during the "Let's Tear Down" statues, and you had Democrat activists that were destroying property, tearing down statues, and instead of being arrested and put in prison, they were rewarded with politicians that said, "We'll help you. Don't strain yourself. We'll take them down for you." When it came to the Black Lives Matter protest, billions of dollars in damage, police targeted, assassinated, American citizens murdered, the demand was defund the police. We won't stop until you start and they were encouraged. You had Kamala Harris out there leading fundraising efforts to bail them out when they got caught. And what did you have a lot of Democrats do? Well, some, like Cori Bush, got elected to Congress. They said, "Oh, what do you want? You want us to defund the police? Okay." And in areas of the country in which Democrats had one-party rule, they did just that. And now you've gone from an administration that claimed it was being led by the greatest ally Israel has ever had in a president, to anti-Semitic Democrat activists demanding that the administration side with Hamas in demanding, among other things, that Israel stands down for a ceasefire, and the administration says, "Okay, you got it. Your wish is our command." By the way, this is the third or the fourth time since the administration began acting as an ambassador and a lobbyist for Hamas that Israel has said, "Okay, we agree to a ceasefire." And guess which side refuses to comply? Guess which side is the side that rejects the ceasefire? So while you have these anti-Semite Democrat activists with their hands painted red, storming through the Capitol to demand a ceasefire, it is the terrorist organization that they are acting on behalf of that is the one refusing to accept a ceasefire. And much of this country doesn't even realize that, because the administration, instead of criticizing Hamas, instead of pointing out, "Hey, Israel has come to the table with numerous ceasefires. You all are the ones that are rejecting it," they continue to bash on Israel and spread disinformation in order to stir up anti-Semitism in this country and in the world against the Israeli people. That is what, apparently, you get when you have the greatest ally of Israel ever in the White House. I think it's about time that we start accurately describing these anti-Israeli protesters for what they are, and that's neo-Nazis. The left loved to talk about neo-Nazis, whenever they could attribute them to Trump somehow. Neo-Nazis, 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 neo-Nazis. On college campuses across this country, Democrat activists, be it invading the Capitol yesterday, or all over this country, that are calling for the elimination of Jews. If that's not a neo-Nazi, I don't know what is. It's amazing how that term, which the media has utilized over and over and over again, when they believe that it could be used to hurt Donald Trump, now that we see actual implications of neo-Nazis, like real life marching, chasing, calling for the destruction and death of all Jews, it's amazing that the media shies away from using that term. This is because of the inconvenient factor that these aren't Trump supporters, and that the Democrats are desperately trying to figure out how to appease these individuals. And it may not bode well for the reelection efforts of the Biden-Harris campaign if the media accurately portrays this administration as trying to find a balance so as not to offend neo-Nazis. By the way, the bloody hands, for those that don't know what that is, and this was on display yesterday, some of the anti-Semitic Democrat activist protesters paint their hands red and hold them up, and they did that in the Capitol yesterday. Several years ago, you had a couple of young members of the Israeli military took a wrong turn, ended up where they weren't supposed to. Some, I'm sure, otherwise peace-loving Palestinians found out about it. About a mob of 1,000 descended and with their bare hands murdered, beat to death these young Israelis. And in a moment of pride, and there's a picture that is sort of iconic regarding this moment, one of the individuals whose hands were drenched in the blood of these Israelis held them up proudly, and it was photographed. That's where the red hands, the bloody hands comes. That's what they're symbolizing there. The murder, the brutal murder by bare hands of Jews. Again, these are the people that the Biden administration is desperately trying to appease. Streaming live, KSGF.com. You're listening to Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. First alert forecast sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt. 80% chance of afternoon showers and storms, high near 61 today, rain 47 tonight. Mostly cloudy 64 tomorrow, Friday sunshine with a high near 69. I want to give you some more details of this because it should not go unnoticed, and it is something that the media will try and portray as something other than it is, and it is the proud display of, quote, blood on the hands of these anti-Semitic, neo-Nazi, Democrat activist protesters. And they painted their hands red and at the gates of the White House. They made palm prints, and they walked through the Capitol displaying this yesterday. Ann Bajewski, president of Human Rights Voices and director of the Touro Institute on Human Rights and the Holocaust, explained the meaning of the red hands to Fox News Digital after the protesters marched through the U.S. Capitol complex. She said Palestinian hands drenched in Israeli blood are indeed a symbol of brutality and human depravity. No Israeli Jew or anyone who follows the decades-long attempt to annihilate the Jewish state and everyone in it can forget the imagery or the horror of what exactly those blood-stained hands meant. Bajewski said that the red hands became a symbol of the Ramallah lynching of 2000 during the second intifada of the violent uprising and premiered before celebrities wore red hand pins at the Oscars this year. This is where people first began to notice this because there were a few celebrities that wore these little pin with the red hands. This originated from October 12, 2000, two IDF reservists, Yassi Avrahami and Vadim Narzahitz, were lynched by a massive mob in Ramallah, West Bank, after they made a wrong turn in the Palestinian Authority-controlled region. After rumors spread about their whereabouts at a police station, around 1,000 Palestinians gathered around the station. I'm sure otherwise well-meaning, of course. One of the soldiers' wives listened by cell phone after a Palestinian butcher answered the victim's phone and told her, quote, "We're now slaughtering your husband." One particular image of the carnage became infamous when one of the killers, Aziz Salah, waved his bloodied hands to the crowd from the police station window after dozens broke in. Salah himself later explained that the Palestinians present were, quote, "in a craze to see blood." As he waved his hands, the Palestinian mobs cheered Allah Akbar, which means God is great. Salah had said, quote, "We were in a craze to see blood. I entered the room. I saw an Israeli soldier sprawled on the floor in front of the door, according to court documents. I came closer to him. I saw a knife lodged in his back near his right shoulder. I removed the knife and stabbed him in the back 2 or 3 times while others in the room continued to kick him. I put my hand over his mouth and the other on his shoulder in order to strangle him. I saw that my hands were drenched with blood. So was my shirt," he continued. "So I went over to the window and I waved my hands at the people who were in the courtyard. The mob then threw the bodies out of the station and desecrated them." That is where that symbol of the red hands come from. Now, what some will do when confronted with this will try and obscure the actual origins and claim that no, it symbolizes the struggle of the Palestinian people or the blood of the Palestinians. That is not what that symbolizes. The raised bloody red hands did not exist in symbolism until after that iconic photo was taken. Iconic to the terrorists. It has long become a symbol. To claim otherwise is just as absurd as if you had members of the Klan burning crosses and then claiming, no, you're taking this out of context. It just actually means, a cross, the crossroads at which different people can all come together, and on fire, the brightness of joy whenever diversity all agrees to come along. And then the absurdity of a media carrying that message of it as if it's true. Of course, we would not accept that because it's not reality. And while I am open, and I do believe that there is a likelihood that you will have some people who, although they are misguided about what is going on in Israel, that will wear the bloody red hand pins or see it in a sympathetic eye because they genuinely don't know what that's about. This is yet again negligence on the side of the media. That you could have a significant portion of the population who maybe will don that imagery because they think that it is simply about genocide, or that it is somehow supposed to represent the Palestinians in Gaza as victims, when in fact it is the purpose of it was to pridefully show the murder of Jewish people, because you have a media that does not want that broadcast. You have a media that is sympathetic with the anti-Semitics. They do not want Americans to see and understand what that's really about. You could have a lot of people that don't know. It's one of the reasons that, of course, some of us do the best we can in order to broadcast the truth about these things. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Everyone, it's Sarah Myers.
Hey, that's me, Rain. It's on the way, and if your roof is not up to par, I want to recommend the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, I have a lot of reasons why I love to recommend Josh and his team, but the big thing for me is that they're not going to take advantage of you, and they're not going to cut corners either. Whenever you call the Pyramid team, they're going to come out, they'll do a thorough roof inspection for you, they're going to check your vents, your gutters, and they'll also get into your attic and check your decking as well. And then they work through a plan that's going to be best for you and your home. Maybe you're in a situation where you don't need a whole new roof. Maybe it's just time for a roof repair. Whatever the roofing situation is, the Pyramid team, they are going to be honest with you, and they're just going to get it all taken care of. So when the rain hits later today and tomorrow, and if you notice any problems, call Josh and his team. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Someone had texted on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Is the app not working? This is a good time to remind you that if you haven't used the app in a while, we did an updated app. It's been months now, but it was December, and I know oftentimes, maybe you don't always use the app. Or maybe you're new to it, or you
just use it when you're traveling.
You just use it when you're traveling, and it's been a while, and you're like, hey, it's not working. Anytime somebody texts in and says it's not working, I pull mine up immediately, as I just did, and it was streaming just fine. But if you haven't updated it since we got the new app, which was back in December, then it will not stream for you. And so you will need to go to the marketplace and just download the new one, update it, and then you will be good to go. The icon of it looks exactly the same, but once you update it, get that new one, you'll see that it's much, much different than the other app was. So if you have that problem, that should help remedy it. If not, just go ahead and text us back. You can also, let's see, a couple of other things I want to mention here. We have for you a chance to win a prize package from Wonders of Wildlife, Dogwood Canyon, and the Ozark Mill at Finley Farms. You can do that at ksgf.com. And you can do a text to win. There is a call to action conservative convention coming up this Saturday. Speakers this year include Chris Ann Hall, William Federer, Robert Brown. You can text the word WIN to the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line for your chance to win a pair of tickets for that. That, again, is coming up this Saturday. Text the word WIN, W-I-N, to 417-447-KSGF. So Biden said in an interview with Univision that took place last Wednesday and aired yesterday that the White House is examining if it has the power to unilaterally shut down the border. And that while some have, quote, suggested I should just go ahead and try it, and if I get shut down by the court, I get shut down by the court, but we're trying to work through that right now. So now he's worried about what the courts may say? This is the same guy who on numerous campaign stops, most recently just this week, noted that when it came to transferring the debt of students who entered into a financial agreement to borrow money to pay for their education, and he's like, hey, I'm going to make someone else pay for that. And the Supreme Court said, you can't do that. And he did it anyway. And he's out there bragging about it. I'll do it anyway. I don't care. He's saying, the courts told me I couldn't. I did it anyway. When it comes to the border, he's like, well, now I don't know that I really have the ability to do this, you see. I got to tell you, it's just not something. And some people have suggested maybe we should just try it. And then if the courts shut you down, then so be it. But I don't know. They have such respect and reverence for the court and the Constitution. This is, again, I know that the theme is repetitive when it comes to these folks. The Constitution and the law is meaningless to them unless they can use it to benefit themselves. When the Supreme Court says you cannot legally force other people to pay for somebody else's student loans that they agreed to pay back, the position of the Democrat Party and the administration is, so what? We'll do what we want. But when it comes to demands that the administration do something in order to close up and secure the border, all of a sudden, well, we don't really know what the courts is. We don't know. We just don't know if that's something we're allowed to do. We really got to figure this one out. The law is meaningless to these people unless they can use it as a weapon against opposition or a tool in order to help themselves. Further that point, State Attorney General in Arizona. So Arizona making headlines because they are reactivating a law based off of a court ruling in Arizona. The Arizona Supreme Court ruled that a law criminalizing abortion other than for the life of the mother may be enforced following the U.S. Supreme Court's Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization decision. And so this is, of course, the left. They're freaking out because unless the mother's life's in danger, you're not going to be able to kill your own baby. The Attorney General, who's a Democrat, has announced that she won't do her job and enforce the ruling. She just won't do it because she doesn't like it. Oh, that's how that works? If you're a Democrat, it is. These are people who run on law and order. And elect me Attorney General, my job will be, not as an individual and not as a Democrat, but as the Attorney General for the state to enforce the laws, to defend the laws. That's the job. But here's one that she just doesn't like, so I don't think so. Wouldn't that be nice if we could all do that? Wouldn't that be nice if Republicans got to do that? Oh, of course not. Republicans do that. They go to prison. Democrats do it. They're brave, they're heroic, and they're standing up for your rights. They do not believe in justice. They do not believe in law and order. They are authoritarians. Free speech only applies to them. Freedom of religion only applies to them. Supreme Court decisions only apply when they want them to apply. The law only applies when they want it to apply. Because they are the great arbitrators of all. They are the dictators of what laws do get enforced and against whom they get enforced. And every day that goes by, to an even greater degree, they proudly display that behavior. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Wilder RV, all of your RV needs. This is, when it comes to a larger purchase item for you and your family, generally speaking, a website's not the best place to go, particularly if you're looking for pricing. This is one of those exceptions, and it's one of those exceptions because the folks who run Wilder RV, frankly, they have a tremendous amount of inventory. They do a great job. They are not dependent on reeling you in, giving you the hard sell. That, in fact, is a hindrance to them. They don't have time for it. They have established themselves with a reputation that has people literally from all over the country purchasing RVs from them. And we're fortunate because they're just a little over an hour away up in Clinton, Missouri, north on 13. Because there are a tremendous amount of people that are much further away that still utilize Wilder RV for their RV purchases because of the job that they do. So they aren't pacing the parking lot, waiting for that next car to walk in and making a beeline towards you, which you may be used to. This allows them to utilize their website in a way that you see whatever pricing, it'll show you. And they have financing available as well. And this is what it is. You're not going to get in there and find out, well, actually, that's the base price, you see. But then we've got a fee for the delivery or pickup, and then we have a prep fee, and we've got a this fee and a that fee. And so that's not what they do. Utilize that website, Wilder RV, and see what you can get. And that price you see is the price that you're going to be facing when you get up there, not something else. WilderRV.com, also KSGF.com, Nick's endorsements. Talked a bit about media today and press today, and NPR is making some headlines because of a 25-year NPR veteran who recently wrote a piece about how they lost their way and how they shifted from becoming a news outfit to instead an organization that's goal was to write stories for the purpose of hurting Trump, not to inform the public. And the left loves to portray themselves as being these great defenders of freedom of the press and so forth. And, Trump, when he was president, chilling effect on the media. And we also heard this White House in particular wring its hands over Navalny dying in this was the Russian political opposition to Putin. And he, acted in a form of journalism in some capacity, but died in prison. And there was all this hand-wringing. And it furthered the narrative of how awful Putin is, which he is. But if you don't know the name Gonzalo Lira, I thought that I should mention that because he's an American journalist who died this past year in a Ukrainian prison, and he was put in prison by Zelensky because he wrote articles critical of Zelensky. Yet this is the country we're told that we all must support. News in 60 seconds, I'm Nick Reed.